Parade season is underway on this July edition of Local Image. Hello, I'm Judy Sky Voss, and I'm in downtown White Bear Lake, where the annual Manitou Days Parade and a long list of other fun activities brought droves of people to this popular destination. We'll share some highlights from the parade a little later. Right now, we'd like to share a very special studio interview. August 4th will mark the one-year anniversary date of the brutal attack that put our co-worker Ray Widstrand into the hospital with an induced coma, barely hanging on to life. Ray underwent numerous surgeries and spent months in the hospital. He's been in therapy and is working hard to regain even the basic life functions. Ray's recovery so far has been remarkable. He shares more about himself, the night that changed his life forever, and the challenges of recovery in his recent visit with me in this Local Image interview. Thank you for coming in today. It's a beautiful, warm day, and you took time to come out and be in our studio with us, so we're really happy to have you.
My pleasure. I'm glad I could come out.
Yeah. How are you feeling today? What's today like for you?
Good. I got a massage this morning. I'm still going to outpatient therapy about once a week at Regions Hospital. I went a couple days ago, so I'm feeling fine today.
Good, excellent. Could you describe for us what you remember and maybe what you've been told, things that you don't remember about what happened? Take us back to that beating on August 4th of 2013, and just tell us what you remember that day and night.
Unfortunately, I don't remember much. I was working. It was a Sunday, which is unusual for me. I think Arlen wanted to go live with something.
Yeah.
So they'd like me to be here to monitor the picture and the sound. So I was here, and then I went home. I got home kind of late. I stopped and got dinner. And it was a nice night. It was August 4th.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd go for a walk. I heard someone cry out, and there were two girls. I couldn't tell, but they were fighting.
Yeah.
And I basically stopped and helped them to their feet. A lot of my memory after that is kind of hazy.
But you do remember that part of it?
That part of it.
Okay. And did you remember seeing a bunch of people? Because apparently there was a whole group of people. Do you remember seeing people there?
Apparently there was a crowd. No one I recognized or knew. And I don't think they were right there congregated. But apparently I was struck on the back of the head and lost consciousness. And I was assaulted by several gang members. Yeah, so, and I don't remember regaining consciousness until much later.
Right.
I was put into a medically induced coma, and given a craniotomy.
And for people who don't know what that means, what does that mean?
About a third of my skull was taken off to help with your brain swells when it's injured like that. And it was to prevent the skull from, you know, pushing up against the brain. So they take it off. A few months later, they tried to reattach the skull. Unfortunately, it got infected during the surgery, so they had to take it back out. And then finally, in April of this past year, they attached a piece of medical grade plastic, and that was my final surgery.
Do you remember when you first started to realize what had happened to you based on what people were saying?
I don't remember it, but apparently several of my family members remember me regaining consciousness and talking to them and asking about what happened, why am I here? When I was in the hospital, I woke up with tubes in my arms and stomach and head, and
Do you remember how that made you feel the first time you...
Well, I was, I figured I'd probably been in an accident of some sort, but I didn't know what.
Right.
The doctor said, you've had a craniotomy, you've been in a medically induced coma for a couple of weeks. It's what they call a PEG tube in your stomach. You have a breathing tube in your throat. You have IVs in your arm administering drugs. I said, shit, I thought you said I was hurt.
Oh, man. How about, what's happened to the perpetrators of the crime? What's the update on that?
There's been some trials. While I was in the hospital recovering, one young man was acquitted, Isaac Maiden. There have been a couple more trials, I think. Sendarian Butler was convicted. He actually got 16 years. There's other trials coming. Another young man pleaded guilty. Yeah, the police investigators have done a very good job. And
a lot of folks have been very inspired and maybe surprised by the fact that, through this whole time, you personally haven't been seeking like revenge. You've actually said that you feel sorry for these guys. Do you think you would have felt that way before this injury? Do you think the Ray before this injury would have felt that same way, or do you think this injury has really changed how you feel about life situations like that?
Well,
any idea?
I'm not sure how I would have felt
Right.
before this injury. As far as I did publicly forgive them, I try not to dwell too much in the negative. I have enough negative thinking on my own, getting over my own depression and negative thoughts, that I don't need to dwell thinking bad about other people. Don't need to dwell in that mental space, because that would just be too much, I feel like. But yeah.
So you have, and I can only imagine it would be a very normal thing to go through, but some feelings of depression, or just kind of, that's been something you've experienced off and on.
And I've struggled with mental illness even before this incident.
Okay.
And this just gives me something to struggle against.
Well, you're a fighter, no doubt.
Exactly.
No doubt.
I think I've inherited some of that.
You got your dad here with you. And speaking of your family, obviously, what an incredible supportive family that has been there all along and so protective of you. I remember going to see you at the hospital for the first time, and we asked if we could do an interview with your parents and your sister, and we did. And but yeah, just so protective. Talk about your family and that experience, with how that's changed, or has it changed your family?
Yeah, they've been wonderfully supportive. My sister especially has been, organizing things, making sure I get to therapy all right, organizing, she was involved in Putts for Ray, and
Yep.
she's organizing my upcoming birthday celebration.
What's planned for that?
I guess just getting together with friends and family and celebrating.
It's going to be an even more special celebration because, initially even the doctors didn't have great hopes that you would even make it through all that.
Yeah, there was a lot of speculation that I would not survive. And when I came to the hospital, I was a John Doe who was not expected to live. fortunately, I was able to pull out my breathing tube, and that was enough of a sign of life that the doctors,
Yeah.
they reconsidered.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what your daily routine is like, and maybe even take us a little back a little further to when you first started getting into therapy, and so we can kind of understand how that's progressed to where you are now. What are some of the things that have happened along the way?
Slowly my faculties have been coming back. When I first was hospitalized, I couldn't walk, I could barely speak, and my memory was non-existent. As the months have progressed, I've healed enough to be walking on my own, talking on my own. I don't know what I can say. Thank you to all of my therapists. Thank you to all of the nurses who assisted me while I was recovering. I still try to exercise, even on days when I'm not going to physical therapy. I try to exercise. Again, I did that even before I was injured. But there's more about maintaining good health. Here it's about recovering back to reactivating all the muscles that have atrophied and all the things.
What are your doctors saying to you as far as where they think you should be, or where they see you at now? I mean, are they like super impressed? Do they think you're right on target with your recovery? Is it just an unknown territory, or?
Doctors don't like to give you those kind of goals. I heard in the hospital, you've seen one brain injury. If you've seen one brain injury, you've seen one brain injury. Depends so much person to person. They're all different. Anyway, but they're asking me what are my goals. I want to get back to driving, get back to work, get back to life and living on my own again. And they're willing to help me with those goals.
We'll hear much more from Ray's interview, including his plans for the future, in next month's show. Sadly, acts of violence against the innocent are far too common in our society, but one organization is eager to share their offer of help and hope to those who are victimized by domestic abuse and sex trafficking. We take you inside Tubman East in Maplewood, Minnesota's largest provider of domestic violence services, for this Local Image segment.
We try and keep it really simple. It's about get help and give help. Our primary goal is to engage the community in what we do, because the more people that know about us, the more they can be ambassadors letting other people in the community know how to get help. The fact is that all of us know someone who's been impacted. Domestic violence was often looked at as a private issue, a family issue behind closed doors. Then it became known as a women's issue, and now it's really a community issue. It's a public health issue, it's a workplace issue, it's an education issue, and it's a safety issue. We work with people who have experienced trauma, primarily domestic violence, sexual assault, substance abuse, mental health crises, and we serve people of all ages. We help almost 40,000 people every single year directly, and that can be a call in the middle of the night on a crisis line, or it can be someone who is using multiple services and really are working toward the next path, step on their journey. We also help another over 20,000 just in terms of community outreach and public support. And we provide safe shelter. That's also one of the things that is available here in this building. And we provide over 20% between here and our Minneapolis location of the state's shelter beds for victims of family violence and their children. And that's not counting the expansion. And we've been over 20% over our reimbursed capacity just because the need is so great. First of all, we help develop safety plans, and then we really work with people about all of their options, that full range of choices, and find them the resources, whether here at Tubman or connecting with other resources in the community. We also provide all kinds of legal help, then lots of mental and chemical health support and treatment, and then the elder abuse prevention, and all kinds of community education. Things like helping people get on their feet with financial literacy, career readiness kinds of things, even a clothing closet here called Harriet's Closet. We also work with men and women who have been abusive or who are feeling as though they may become abusive. Sometimes they're court-ordered and sometimes it's a choice, but we know that violence is a learned behavior and that it can be unlearned.
Oftentimes my first contact with clients, they are scared, they may be frustrated, they maybe have gone through this process before, this may be the 8th criminal case they've had. They feel like they have no options. And really to let them know that they do have options, that they have support, that they can call anytime and talk through things, and that there are services for them. When I'm first meeting with a client, I really want to get across that there is no judgment, that we all make the best decisions we can with the information we have at the time. So when they're meeting with us, that there's not going to be any judgment about past decisions they've made, that really they are wanting the best for their families, and that's what I'm here for. And I'm here to advocate for their wishes, not what I think is best for their family, but what's really best for them and their family and children on their time schedule. And really that they deserve a life without abuse, and that it's not their fault that they are experiencing verbal, physical, emotional abuse.
A lot of times young people aren't even sure that violence is happening to them, so it takes a really trusted connection to be able to share some questions, ask questions about what's going on, and then figuring out how to navigate it. What can I do? Where's a safe place to go? Who's going to help? Directly we help 10,000 young people each year, and then that 10,000, a portion of them go on to help many, many more. We have young people that stay here for shelter and they get comprehensive resources and support. We also are able to meet young people in their homes or schools, community centers, coffee shops. We connect by email. We offer a host of community events and ways to connect, support groups, one-on-one services, the full range.
If someone is concerned about someone that they care about, I would want them to know that they don't have to figure it out on their own. That there are organizations like Tubman who are here to help people figure out what their path can be, what their options are, to customize that safety plan to their own situation. Oftentimes people are afraid to bring it up because they don't want to offend someone. I say that I would rather offend you than not let you know that I care. And so people they can call our crisis line. It's 24/7, anytime. It's 612-825-0000. Or they can visit us at tubman.org, and there you can find all kinds of information about how to get help, how to give help. And some of the ways that people can give help are certainly going to our website, learning more about our volunteer opportunities. We do an extensive training. We work with about 700 volunteers every year and 200 pro bono attorneys who take cases over time. At least 150 of them do work for us every single year. We also have 2 special events every year that help us raise funds and spread awareness. One of them is coming up in August. It's August 13th, which is a Wednesday night. It's at the Depot in downtown Minneapolis, and it's called the Wing Ding. It's all the chicken wings and dessert that you can eat. It's really a fun time to learn a little bit more about what we do and to raise money for a good cause.
I just encourage people to get to know us, connect with us, and again, everyone has a gift to share, and we need the whole community to help make a difference.
Please visit Tubman's website for a whole host of information on services and activities, and remember their motto, get help, give help. Now, back here in White Bear Lake, we take you across Highway 61 and into City Hall, where we found Ben Eggan at work as the city's building official in this local image spotlight.
I grew up in California surfing and skateboarding. As a kid, I skateboarded all the time. And, you know, family brought me here, 2,000 miles away from the ocean. I can't surf, obviously, and I've tried water skiing, things like that. It's just not the same. But these longer boards are pretty similar to carving a wave. If you have enough speed and can go, it kind of simulates that, and I like that. So it's my way to reconnect, I guess. We're in my garage in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, and this is my shop, I call it. I like to tinker around and play with things. Made my motorized bicycle over there in the corner and putz around, and I make skateboards most of the time. They've kind of evolved. Like my first one I ever made was pretty short. Then I slowly started making them a little bit longer. It's pretty cool. You can make them almost 6.5 feet long, and they still work. So it's kind of just pushing the edge of the envelope, you know. The smaller boards that most kids ride are street boards. They're designed for jumping and you know, flipping the board around and for riding on ramps. And certainly years ago I did all that, rode in pools and ramps and all that. But as you get older, you can't handle the falls and stuff. So the longer boards are just, it's like standing on a sidewalk. It's just easier. They don't turn as fast. They're, you know, you gotta kind of look ahead at where you're going. They're carving boards, and they're good for flat terrain. They're okay for some hills, but they're not like a speed downhill board, you know. They're kind of for cruising. You know, you gotta go and find somewhere where you can pick the wood. The wood has to be pretty clean, like no knots. And I typically use oak. And I go and I look and I go pick through the piles. So one thing you got to think about is the thickness. You know, you need to decide how far apart the trucks are going to be. The wider they are, the more it's going to flex. And the heavier the person is, the more it'll flex. So if you're making it for a guy like me, or somebody larger, sometimes 5/8 or thicker, you know. And it seems like it'd be too stiff, but when you spread the trucks out, it works. And then you have to create a center line on it. So I basically paint a pinstripe down the center, and that's forever the center line of the board for shaping it and for drilling the holes in it and for painting it even. So that's real valuable. Then you can always measure off of that left to right and get all the curves right. Cut it out with a jigsaw, literally by hand. And then I've made a jig over here that I put it into, and then I use a sander and I sand it. And as you sand it, you can, with a belt sander that's pretty aggressive, it'll take it down pretty good if you spend time. Once you do that, I drill the holes, mount everything. Don't paint it until you've ridden it, you know, because more often than not, you'll paint it and you'll go put it all together and something rubs on the ground or doesn't work, you know. Like a lot of times, the wheels will rub on the board here, you know, so then you have to cut a groove out if this came straight through. So I always put them together and I ride them. I'm stuck in that green Ford pickup over there in 1970 or something, you know. I just like that time, and growing up in California, it was cool. I would say White Bear Lake is definitely my home now, you know, and I'll be here. So sometimes you want to go back to LA, but I think we're going to stay.
A building official who's a street surfer? Who knew? I wonder if Ben appeared in the Manitou Days Parade riding his longboard. Keep an eye out for him as we share some highlights from the parade as we close out today's show. And also listen for the shout out to our Community Media Center, something to do with it being our 30th anniversary and all. Until next month, I'm Judy Skyvoss. Enjoy a fantastic summer season, and as always, I do thank you for watching Local Image.
Now we have suburban community channels, and I've been talking about this all along. They're celebrating 30 years of service to White Bear Lake and the surrounding communities. The mission of SCC is grounded in the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, and it's accomplished by their commitment to empowering the community with the tools, knowledge, and access to media. SCC offers training in television production, in the field, and in the studio, as well as training in post-production editing. SCC offers a variety of local programming from and about our communities on cable channels 14 and 15. To find out more about SCC and what it has to offer, go to scctv.org.